think we can read Romans, we can read a biblical book, and understand what the author is saying without any immediate comparison with other contemporary texts. But if we situate the biblical text next to or in the context of other Jewish texts, I think that the biblical text comes alive. And I think we get a better appreciation for what it is that Paul, particularly in Romans, wants to stress. What's important to him, and how is the Christian message different from what was being stressed in Jewish theology in and around the time of the writing of Paul's letter. What we seek to do in reading Romans in context is to compare what Paul had to say on a particular topic with what some of his contemporary Jewish authors were saying. And these kinds of parallels are helpful not just to show how similar that Paul is to some of his contemporaries, but actually to draw out some of the ways in which he's different. So he might be discussing a particular topic that one of his contemporaries discussed, but he actually has some different kinds of things to say on it. And so to draw out those kinds of contrasts is really helpful for illuminating what Paul was, how he was situated in his theological context. It's not a technical reading, and so we don't. The authors don't engage in word studies, but it's about the concepts. What theological concepts were relevant and being discussed by Jewish authors in and around the time of the New Testament, and then how does Paul then approach those concepts, those topics, in a similar and yet distinct way. And so each chapter is divided into two parts. The first is a discussion of the Jewish comparator text, and so there's a bit of an explanation of what that text is arguing or discussing or explaining about a particular topic. And then there's the comparison with Romans, the particular Romans text, where we approach the explanation and the exposition of the Romans text with a close comparison and contrast with what was discussed in the Jewish text. The book had its genesis in trying to teach students how to interpret Paul's letter to the Romans in a clear and interesting way. And so rather than just studying the book from its beginning to end and dividing it into 20 or so lectures where we're studying Romans in isolation, I thought it was far more interesting to expose my students to what other Jewish authors were saying and what Paul had to say on a similar topic. And we came up with this great lineup of authors who were young experts on Paul and his ancient Jewish context, and had them distill some of their previous research in this book in about 20 chapters. I think reading Romans in context would be a superb book to assign alongside a major commentary in a Romans class. It's a way of illuminating Paul's thought beyond just a verse-by-verse exegesis, but by helping the student see how he's unique, how he's a distinctive thinker.